Exactly. So I am joined today by Jordan Topoleski, who is just completing CEO for a month with the Adecco Foundation.
Exactly. Yes, thanks so much for having me.
It's great to be here and talk to you. So tell me, what was the month like?
It's truly a phenomenal experience, to be honest.
Yes.
It blew my mind. So in the past 30 days, we've been in, I think, 13 or 14 different cities. And what the experience looks like, it's an opportunity to shadow Alain Dehaze, who's the global CEO for the Adecco Group, and basically travel with him and really by his side for the entire month. So we were in everything ranging from client calls to going and visit our branches around the world, to investor meetings, to leadership trainings and seminars. Everything you might expect a CEO of a Fortune 500 company to be doing, I was by his side for an entire month. It's a program that started in the group roughly 10 years ago as an initiative to really engage younger talent and think, how can we help them grow within our group and provide them maybe career opportunities?
And as you go away, what is the thing you learned in shadowing Alain for the whole month about leadership?
Where to even begin?
Yeah, if you had to encapsulate into three things, say three big learnings. Yeah,
okay.
What was the...
First is the real value of people. And I think it's easy, especially as a younger person or as a student, to sometimes sit back and think, I need to really practice the hard skills. I need to get those down. Yes, of course, there's certainly a piece of that that's important. To me, the biggest learning was that every people is a people business. I think that's especially true at Adecco, where our business literally is people, placing people in jobs and opportunities all around the world. But there's such an importance there. There was a framework that Alain talked about a lot that I took away called the 3 C's of people management.
Okay, tell me about the 3 C's.
Yeah, so the 3 C's, it's coaching, it's collaboration, and it's culture. And the really core piece that I focused on at Adecco, and I think this holds true for rather a Fortune 500 company or a small startup just beginning, the way you look at those 3 components and how you build those up within your company and focus on the people defines so much of the success. And I saw that coming out of the group and how important it is to have that relationship management piece really, really down pat. So that was the first one, and it presented itself in many ways, so many different opportunities. Another leader in the group, for example, told me it's not just about profit and loss anymore, especially nowadays. It's about people and leadership. It's the new P&L, she called it. And I love that as an example.
I love that, the new P&L. That's fantastic. People and leadership.
It was phenomenal. So
those are 2 big ones.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2. I might call it that because I have so much to share. The second piece was really around how companies are trying to innovate. And I come from the past, from more of the technology startup space. I'm coming over from the United States and San Francisco, where I've been roughly the past year, and observing that environment, which is very different cup of tea, you could say. And for me now, coming and looking at it in a larger corporate environment, it made me think a lot about how can you still keep an entrepreneurial and innovative culture
inside a large organization.
Inside a company that's 30,000 plus people,
right?
And 50 plus countries around the world. And a piece that really stood out to me is the change management piece around communication. And I think back a lot actually to the way I met you, which was during our session.
Yeah, I want to hear how that was impactful for you.
We'll come back to that.
Yes.
I think about that a lot because so much of the way you keep an innovative culture is by communicating the change and not having it be overwhelming for people. And it's much more, again, of one of those soft insights maybe I took away that was so much on the leadership. It's how can you message and package things in a way that don't make people feel like, wow, this is happening in such a quick way or spiraling out of control. And, you start seeing retention and, numbers not looking too so good, attrition. So that was one piece. And the second was maybe a little bit more of a tangible hard piece is thinking about the structure of your organization. And do you want this to be something that's within an existing business unit? Do you want it to be something that's more of a incubation and innovation lab? And turning on the lights or putting on the glasses, the lenses to look at the situation and say, what contextually works right for my business is a really important piece. I think when you're a small organization, you don't even think about those things.
So you said earlier that you thought when you went in that there was the hard stuff, the hard skills were important, though now you've come away learning that it's also people. And what would be your piece of advice if you were to talk to somebody about how to manage those 2 pieces moving ahead?
the pieces of
hard stuff and the soft stuff, the people stuff and the mathematics and
Okay.
the science.
So on the soft skill side, and I'm going to focus this particularly on what I think as a college age student, for
Yes,
example.
you got 1
coming out
year
of the
left.
workforce.
You got
I
1
do.
year left of school.
I do, and I think when I reflect on that and what a lot of my friends are talking about when I talk with them, it's been a very interesting time for us to enter into the workforce. Tumultuous, chaotic, so many changes over the past year, which is already a normally pretty shocking experience for people transitioning from really what is childhood formative training to then saying I'm entering the workforce.
Yes, and especially during COVID.
Exactly. So the core theme there, like many others have experienced, is the need for flexibility and adaptability. And I think that really is going to aim my answer or guide my answer to this question in both the hard and the soft skills. And I'll start with the soft because I think those are even more important. I think my generation is emphasizing purpose like no one ever has before. We're really zooming out and saying, how can we focus on the bigger questions? How can we ask the why? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why does this matter? And for leaders, I really challenge leaders to say, how do we answer those questions? How do we find a piece of fulfillment and a piece of purpose?
And make it congruent, not just some sort of standardized answer,
Exactly.
so that people really can buy into it.
Make it congruent to work for our whole organization. So that's more on maybe the soft skills management. On the hard skills, I think it's also around this point. It's around a piece of building systems to keep connectivity within an organization, which maybe merges the soft and the hard skills a little bit. But what we've seen is mental health, burnout, questions around these being answered. We actually ran a study recently at the Adecco group called See the Future. It's a really interesting study because it interviewed all of the participants in the CEO for 1 month program. And what we found was, of all the respondents, the number one focus in the workplace was mental health right now.
It's just well-being.
Mental health and well-being. And I love the well-being word a lot more because I think mental health can sometimes have a bit too much stigma around it. What it found was the respondents felt only 10% of managers, 10% of the respondents felt that their managers were able to aptly deal with burnout, deal with well-being in the workplace. And this is a real shift we're seeing from in the past. And I think when we look at things like what's being called the Great Resignation or the Great Reevaluation, so much of the cause of this is this right here. It's that there's no structures, foundations, and emphasis on this within an organization. So as people function from maybe a hard skills perspective, is saying, how do we think about systems in a new way? How do we zoom out in our company and say, we need to really invest in training, we really need to invest in creating the right structure for people to feel connected in this new digital world that's becoming super present for my generation. That remote work is what we know. I think it's hybrid at the very most.
Yeah. So, if you were to define a leader, what have you learned about leadership that you would like to embody in your future?
Good question. I think the biggest thing I learned is how dynamic it is. And any person that's in a leadership position is going to be experiencing a very diverse set of experience. And leadership is contextual. I think that was my biggest takeaway. It's easy to look at it. I'm saying, leader, it's the person who sits at the top and
just
says, this is the strategy. In a startup, maybe it's doing. In a large organization, it's, this is what we're going to do and this is why you're going to do it. But as I saw with the group, there's so many different interactions you have. You can go from, in a 3-hour period, from talking with investors, one hat, talking with board of directors, second hat, going and having a leadership training with your country managers, for example. And all of those, you have to focus on not what do I want, but what do the people I'm talking to want, and how can I help build this collective sense of togetherness to help get us to the next step.
And I love how what you're pointing to is very contextual and very varied.
Yes.
And very challenging. Okay, one last question. How did the communication training we worked on help you?
Yeah. I think you don't think of communication traditionally, or at least I hadn't thought of it as such a core tenet of leadership. And now, as you've seen probably in my reflections, such a core message is saying communication is everything. Especially at a company like Adecco, for example, or many companies that are having this international footprint. And even for companies that have had this international footprint, but maybe you've never interacted with them before, Now you're saying I'm doing hybrid work, I'm doing remote work. I'm forced to. I'm on Zoom, anyone in the world can join the call. Because of that, communication is becoming more important than ever. The contextual nature of it, how we think about it. And when I go back to your training, I remember, first off, how much fun we had together.
Well, I'm glad it was fun. Learning with fun.
Exactly. It always makes it a lot easier and the takeaways more. But I reflect back on that session quite a bit we had with you. And thinking about how much the tone and the approach to a conversation can change the entire intent of it.
Yeah. It's not always the what, it's the how and the what together.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think about it even in my own conversation. I still have in my phone from our training, actually, that anytime I type but, the autocorrect changed it to the and.
Beautiful.
Still have that in my phone. And,
Good.
And it's great because on a daily basis, it reminds me, frame the conversation, think about the intent behind what you want to communicate, and accurately communicate it. Something as small as sentence structure. And yes, it's a little bit harder when you're talking. You don't have the autocorrect in the brain yet, at least. We'll see.
Yeah, and you have to use the head, the hand, and the heart to bring in the and in a conversation.
Right now, I think I need a little you on my shoulder with the paddle right here saying, Jordan.
But change it to an and. Okay, well that's great. What's your immediate next step after you go around Europe? What are you going to be up to?
Yeah, so I'll be headed back to the States in about a week.
Okay.
Luckily, I have a week to explore Switzerland a little bit more here.
Enjoy the beauty.
A lot of fun. Oh, and boy, is it beauty. I'll be headed back to the States and I'll be completing the last year of my studies.
All right.
So I'm over on the East Coast in Boston studying history and science, which is basically a program that's combining a little bit of computer science, economics, and philosophy. And from there, sort of thinking a lot about my next step.
All
I think
right.
the next month is going to be a lot of reflection.
Well,
thinking about how my views have changed.
Yeah, let it sink in and remember, and you can't push a river, it's got to flow. So maybe let it flow a little bit.
I love it.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much for having
so
me today.
good to see you and connect again.
And finally in person.
Exactly, in person, not just
What
the
an honor.
hybrid stuff. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Don.